Hey guys, welcome back to Disney Coffee and Book Talk. I'm your host, Alex. We are going to continue with our annotation of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. We're on chapter 11. Before I deep dive into this chapter, there are some things I want to note that happened recently with J.K. Rowling. I know I took a little bit of a break, but we are back. So number one, she dead named a trans woman, meaning she used their biological, the name that they were given at birth by their biological parents. Although they did change it, they are using this. So yeah, Joanne, who people don't really call you Joanne, you know, or know you as Joanne, but you go by JK, right? You also use the name Robert in some of your books because, you know, some authors have different names. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way, but you have the fucking audacity to dead name someone, right? Something that hurts them, not using their, gender affirming care just by using proper pronouns, but also have the fucking audacity to be a pedophile. I mean, is it that shocking with it's JK? I mean, even without her having been spoken about in the Epstein files, by the way, yes, she was. And I did talk about that in a different video. I'll quickly cover that in a minute, but has the audacity to take a picture up this trans woman's skirt and dead name them. You look like a piece of shit. I mean, you already are, but you look like a worse piece of shit. And honestly, you should be arrested for sexually assaulting this lady for the pedophilia. But now back to the Epstein files. Now, look, I think that everyone that is named in those files should be investigated. And I say investigated, I don't say necessarily arrested, because as much as I hate JK, I don't necessarily think that she was a bad person in this circumstance, although I do side-eye you, because at this point you already knew that he had been not only accused of, but also convicted for trafficking children, sex trafficking, among other things. So I am going to side-eye you. But he wanted to have dinner with her. He wanted to have a meeting or something. He was coming into town for a show, and he wanted to meet with her, right? Again, I don't think necessarily there's anything that she directly did that was wrong other than accepting the invitation with a known sex trafficker. But, you know, I don't think that's an arrestable offense. Let me just say that. However, taking a picture up someone's skirt is sexual harassment. It's pedophilia. And you're dead naming them, so you're also putting them in more danger in several different instances. You are a piece of shit, Joanne. Yeah, fuck you, bitch. Also, you're using not only a Nazi name, but also a man who created conversion therapy against the LGBTQ. And you claim, Joanne, claims she's pro-LGBT, LGB, I should say, right? But let's not forget that if it wasn't for the T, right, the trans community, that there wouldn't be the same rights for the LGB. She claims to be pro-women, pro-cisgender, right, biologically born and stays a woman. Cis is a word both in Latin, Latin meaning as well as medical terms, so let's just go with that. But yet, she cannot speak for all of us. I am a woman. I am a cis woman. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I am not threatened by any means by a trans woman. If someone feels that they are more a different gender than what they were biologically born, that is fine. And let me just say, science also goes along with that. Their brain chemistry, their hormones, by the way, reflect the gender that they are wanting to transition into. But y'all don't want to talk about that, right? Because if you actually bother to do the science to read the signs, I should say, to listen to the trans community, to respect them. You don't have to agree, but to give them basic respect, you would know that. And let me just say, what does someone wanting to transition have affect your life? The community getting the same human rights that everyone else doesn't take away rights from you. So all you're doing is looking like a piece of shit. I said what I said. All right, now into the book. Okay. So this chapter goes along with, let's see, Harry had just been attacked by Dementors again. He had seen the Grim, as in Sirius Black as the dog. It was during a Quidditch match. Wow, I cannot think sometimes. And that was in chapter 10. We are now in chapter 11. So he just gets out of the hospital in the beginning of this. Like, he's being visited by people. And then he's getting back into the normal day-to-day life of being at Hogwarts. And then comes the holiday season, Christmas, right? So that's where we're basically at. He is gifted a firebolt. We don't know who by, okay? And this is kind of the premise of the majority of this chapter, that they don't know who gifted Harry the Thunderbolt, but they think it's possibly Sirius Black, and they don't want it to be jinxed. Now, Lupin had been sick during Harry's attack when his Nimbus 2000 got destroyed by the Whomping Willow. There's also some overlay with that and the friendship group that Lupin, James Potter, Sirius Black, and Peter Pettigrew were part of, as well as Ron, Harry, Hermione, and Neville, right? Just a little overlap, but not much. There was some comparing of... Harry actually compared Peter Pettigrew to Neville, but he doesn't know the actual facts around his mother's death, or his parents' death, really. And he goes on to actually tell Ron and Hermione, like, you guys don't understand. Like, every time I'm near them, the Dementors, every time I'm being attacked, and even beyond that, like in his dreams, he's constantly hearing the screams of his mother. He's constantly hearing voices from Voldemort, and actually Peter Pettigrew again, but he does not know it's Peter Pettigrew, so let's keep that in mind. And he's like, this is trauma, and you guys don't understand what I have to go through every single fucking day, and it's reliving in my brain, right? Like, when he was little, I know people think about the blank slate theory, like, oh, but, you know, if you were... I don't often talk about adoption on this on this channel. I do on my TikTok, but also, I guess I should start. People think about the blank slate theory. Someone that pushed this a lot was Georgia Tan. She's a known human trafficker. But the idea is that you don't remember your biological family once you're adopted. Now, Georgia Tan did this for all ages. It didn't matter if they were newborns, like right out of the womb, or 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds. She even did it to 16-year-olds, okay? Like, she is a piece of shit. She literally would steal children off the streets and sell them under the guise of adoption. Mind you, she never had her adoption license, okay? So keep that in mind. She is the reason that the United States has a private infant adoption, which is $24 billion of an industry. Yeah. Again, I will talk about that in a whole different video, but my point being that the blank slate theory has been debunked, right? So even with Harry, who had lived with his mother and father for at least a year that we know of, there are going to be memories. Now, they were pre-verbal. He probably wasn't talking. And with trauma, you can definitely staunch it down, right? Oftentimes when there's a lot of trauma, people have, like, blanks in their memory, right? Like, they don't necessarily remember what happened during that time. They can't really, even like good things, they just don't remember because of that. But he's now getting those flashbacks to that time because it was triggered, right? It was a reoccurring situation that re-triggered his memory, and now he's has to deal with this. And Ron and Hermione are just looking at him like, this isn't a good idea. Like, we know that you want to get revenge, but like, you're just putting yourself in more danger. And they were having the conversation like, well, Malfoy said that if it were him, he'd want revenge. Yeah, but Malfoy's also not a good person, and his father is a neo-Nazi, right? The Death Eaters are supposed to be the Nazis of the time, right? So trying not to laugh, but like, let's be so freaking for real. Voldemort's supposed to be like an Adolf Hitler kind of person. Like, reflect that. You have the Death Eaters, you have the Dementors, who are supposed to be the police. They're all bad. We can see that they're all bad. And to say that you agree with Malfoy, although I can kind of understand, yeah, no, that's not gonna work. And really, you're not getting justice. You're not gonna make yourself feel better by murdering someone that you think killed your parents. Also, let's also mention that you didn't have the right information, so you want to kill someone because you think they did something, but you're also trying to murder an innocent man who's actually going after the person who really did murder your family. Yeah. Tell me again how that's justice. Got it. Then we also have Hagrid dealing with the Council for the Disposal of Magical Creatures Committee, who are they mentioned that they're in Lucius Malfoy's pocket, and they want to get rid of Buckbeak. They want to put him on trial. And we have children, right? They're what, 13, 14 at this age, right? In this book, going to the library. Now, granted, they didn't have computers in this world, right? But they're going to the library to do research. I'm not sorry to say this, in our current world, and I know we're talking about fiction versus reality, y'all need to wake the fuck up. There is a literacy crisis, and we have characters in a book knowing how to do real research compared to actual children. I just wanted to highlight that they are so smart to be able to go into a library, pull out the books, and find the case. They're looking at laws to help Hagrid with this hippogriff case. And yet, a lot of people think that, oh, I'm just going to go Google something, AI is going to pull it up, and then don't know what a credible source is. Can't bother to actually read through the studies, the cases, whatever they're trying to get their point across. It's baffling to me. Meanwhile, 3 fictional characters are able to do just that. Now, I have to remind you that this book came out right when Google even began. Like, right around when it began. Yes, I'm that old. But the point is, although the internet existed, right, at that point, research really is best done off the internet. Go to your library. Go to your local university or college. Use their library. Have people help you. Now, yes, you could find some of the same information online, but know how to properly research. Know what a credible source is. Know how to read through it and understand. Because even in this, right, even in this chapter, they're talking about cases that had to deal with magical creatures. One was a hippogriff, and then Hermione goes, oh, wait. The hippogriff wasn't saved, right? Oh, Ron goes, here was a case with a minotaur. Oh, wait. Although they released the minotaur, not minotaur, oh god, I forgot what the creature is. Was it a minotaur? Anyway, although they released the creature, people were afraid to be near it, right? Like, they're reading it and they're comprehending what they're reading. Oh, this isn't actually helpful for Hagrid's case. And then Hagrid, they're going on, right, and they're talking before they go research, they're talking to Hagrid about Hagrid's time in Azkaban. And this is really, really important information because he's talking about how soulless the prison is, right? It's meant to suck your soul out of it. It's not actually meant to, like, when we think of jails and prisons, right? The idea is, yes, you are serving your time for your punishment, absolutely, but you should also be learning to do better, right? Rehabilitation. I'm not saying everyone can be rehabilitated. Please don't confuse that. But the whole goal is they're going to be getting out. How are they going to do better in society, right? It's not just the punishment, but how do we learn to do better? If a place is sucking the life soul out of you, like Azkaban is with the Dementors, again, we're talking police, prison, how terrible it is, that they lose their way. He literally says they make them want to die. He's telling children that this prison system is so bad that people want to commit suicide. Which, by the way, is very heavy for a book that children are reading, right? Middle school, high school. We were reading this elementary into middle school and high school. But the point is, that is a very, very heavy topic. Now, again, as I reread things, whether it's this book or other books, you know, you get more, especially as you're older and you're well more educated and on topics. That's heavy. There are some really heavy themes in this book. We also have that Hagrid was never treated properly because he is half giant. How they treated certain people because of their, not just their gender, but their race, right? Or if they're quote unquote pure blood, right? Like the Lucius Malfoys, they're all magical, versus quote unquote half breeds, or you're muggle born. It's a form of bigotry. And we see this in here, right? We also see that Snape has a hatred for Lupin. And part of it, yes, and I've talked about this in other videos, part of it is because they went to school together. They were at Hogwarts at the same time. He knows that Lupin is a werewolf. And Lupin was friends with James Potter. James Potter married Lily. And Snape had a huge crush. So let me just say, Snape is... While some may say Snape is misunderstood, get the fuck over it. Honestly, get the fuck over it. Because this is not how you treat people. This is... You liked one girl. Fine, we understand. She didn't like you that way back. It happens. And you're going to treat everyone around you, anyone that comes into contact with her, whether they were a friend, a husband, her child, bad? That is obsession and stalker behavior and red flags right there. Then how he treats Lupin, right? Again, beyond all that. Because he's a werewolf, because he has the job that Snape so desperately wants. I don't understand how Dumbledore can stand this guy. But I also know that Dumbledore is using him to spy on the Death Eaters. But I honestly wouldn't have put him around children. Same thing with Trelawney, by the way. Like, she's a nut. she's a fucking nut. And the way that, look, I am not dissing people that believe in spirituality and believe in all this, right? But the way that she goes on to try to freak people out, the way that she really tries to put McGonagall down, and McGonagall's like, bitch, you not happening. It was just kind of interesting, I guess. I don't know. There's obviously also a pattern that we're seeing with Lupin when he's in that turning stage. And although there's clues to it for Harry, Hermione, and Ron, they're not really catching on. Obviously, Dumbledore knows. Obviously, Snape knows. McGonagall probably knows. But yeah, also, Trelawney mentioned the number 13, and I thought that was kind of interesting because 13 happens to be our lucky number, or it's one of our lucky numbers in my family, but 13 just seems to be like this thing against, in the superstition, like everyone's like, oh no, it's 13. A baker's dozen is 13. It's not 12. A baker's dozen is actually 13. A dozen is 12. A baker's dozen is 13. I know it sounds crazy, but there's nothing wrong with that, right? The 13 is not going to hurt you. I know everyone goes, oh my gosh, it's Friday the 13th. Guess what? My parents got married on a Friday the 13th. They've been married for over 40 years. How about that? How about that? And what's really cute, at least for my parents, I'm going off on a tangent. What's really cute about my parents is that it doesn't matter if it's the actual yearly anniversary or if it's just the month. If it's the 13th, they'll be like, oh, happy anniversary. They don't go crazy. It's just a quick little happy anniversary. It's so cute. Sorry, going off on a tangent. But there are just things that I just... Yeah. Yeah. Let's also mention that if we were to change the name of her characters, she would be upset. But let's also talk about, and we're going to talk about this later, that she has specifically named characters based off their race. Like one of the only black characters that we ever see is named Kingsley Shacklebolt. Our Asian character that we know the most, Cho Chang. Y'all don't, like, hear that? The racism? I'm just baffled by why any... Look, again, I'm saying this as someone who was deep into the fandom and not having recognized this until I got older. How we even remotely enjoyed these books with all of these running themes. Now, granted, we also liked Twilight, we also liked Hunger Games, etc. I get it, but like, it's mediocre writing with a heavy dose of bigotry involved. It really is. Anyway, that is what I have to say about chapter 11. Yeah.